everybody. My name is Dio Morales, your less than 5-minute host of the Gold Squadron podcast. You're listening to episode 308 today. Running the cast, we got the team here. We got Ryan. We are the captain now, Staniszewski.
We are the captains now.
Marcel, trial by trolley, Manzano.
This is gonna be so bad.
William, second best green screen, Hagwood.
You know it.
James, rehydrated Ritter.
Hey guys, just got back from a Costa Rican vacation, ready to do the podcast tonight. Very excited.
And Tim, oh Canada, Ralphs.
Hello out there. We're on the air. It's hockey night tonight.
All right, so you might be wondering where are you going, Dion? So tonight, during podcast night, instead of podcasting, I, Dion, will be banished to the brig, to the dungeon, to work on shipping for our stream prizes. We are fully aware that we're behind on things, so I don't have any other time but Monday nights to work on XWing GSP stuff right now with the new baby and everything. So I was saying, well, you know what? I trust these guys to drive the ship, and I'm going to go ahead and start working on that tonight. Try to get as caught up as possible. If you're watching live, look for some posts on Discord. If you're watching later, look at the posts on Discord if you're expecting a stream prize. Now, you might be saying, well, Dion, I'm missing this other thing. I'm fully aware there are other things missing. We ship out like a lot of things, and I will be working on that after we get caught up with the stream prizes. So one at a time, I promise we'll get to you as soon as we can. So I'm going to go head down to the basement here. Going to go ahead, take the lift down to the dungeon, and good luck, everybody. And yeah, bye.
No worries. Thank you, Dion. Tim, let's start with you. Let the people know who you are. Why?
Sure. Thanks, Will. My name's Tim, guys. I reside in the cold white north country of Canada. I have been playing X-Wing since 2000 and I guess 16 winter, 17 very early. I've had the pleasure of playing against, I think, 3 of you. Dion definitely once. Ryan, no, I didn't play against you at that Michigan regional. And Marcel once. Marcel just beat me like a redheaded stepchild. It was terrible. At the end of the day, one of the things that I've always said about X-Wing is that it takes a lot of types of players to make a band. I'm definitely not one of the best players in Canada. I'm more of a Ringo Starr than a John Lennon, if that makes any sense. Community organizer, somebody who believes that games should be about fun and friends and community, and try to do as best as I can. Put together a couple of bus trips before, and here to talk tonight about a community and some really great events happening in Canada in the next little while.
That's awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming on. I know Ryan's got some burning questions for you.
Oh.
So I'm going to pass it over to him.
Now everyone's looking forward to the new events coming up. And people are thinking, oh yeah, Gen Con, Nova, and there's another country to the north of us that probably has a ton of events, right? And Timbo's like, yeah, let me tell you about them. So Tim, what's going on in Canada for the foreseeable future?
Well, the first thing that's important to know, Ryan, is that about a year ago, one of the smaller squad members in a place called London, Ontario, named Brian, created an online Google map that started what we're hoping is going to evolve to be a global Star Wars gaming registry. So I'm going to leave the link with you, gentlemen, and hopefully your listeners will see it in the description of the podcast after the call. It's really starting to take shape. We've even had some folks from UK, Europe, and Australia chime in on it. So I've thrown together some of the squads that I know are in the States, like yourselves, 306, Burning River Squadron, the Nickel City Boys in Buffalo, that kind of stuff. Because to your point, there's so many squads in the U.S., Northeast, Minnesota, West Coast that share a border with Canada that we share so many events. Ryan, your guys have come over to our events before. We've come down to Michigan before. I really think it's so important if we want to regrow. And I don't say rebuild, I say regrow because, games have a lot of ebb and flow to them in terms of who participates. If we want to regrow the communities, there has to be a way for players to both see where the games are happening in real life, where are the squads, like which game stores have communities for Legion, X-Wing, Shatterpoint, that kind of stuff. And then where are the big events happening? So this map we built has all of the tier 1 events, like your Gen Cons, your World Championships and stuff like that. And then it has some of these events in Canada. So the two biggest ones I really wanted to call out for everybody who's either Canadian or anybody within 100 kilometers, and I don't know how many miles that is. Let's say less than 100 miles of the Canadian border. There's two in early June. So there's one in Calgary, which is going to be great for anybody who lives probably, I want to say Minneapolis to Seattle. That's within striking distance. Minneapolis to Seattle, you can get to Calgary in fair time. That's the Stampede City Open. So that's going to be on the weekend of June the 10th. And Jesse Varley has somehow roped Andrew Aller into being the TO for this great event up in Calgary. And it's going to host Armada, Legion, X-Wing. We're really hoping AMG is going to get involved and do a Shatterpoint demo here as well. But the thing I love about this event that I haven't seen a lot, especially with Canada being so huge and having, the need for these big types of national events on both sides of the country, Jesse's really designed this event for a lot of Americans to fly in and fly out. So there's actually discount codes available for Air Canada on travel and hotels. So not only would you actually be able to fly in, and unlike Schaumburg, unfortunately, where you have to grab that 40-minute, $80 Uber from the airport, Calgary, you fly in and you can take public transit right to the hotel. This event's going to be 2 days. There's going to be never not anybody playing, tons of prizes and stuff like that available, local eats and amenities, and just lots of really great stuff that's going on there. So if anybody wants information on the Stampede City Open, it's Stampede City Open on all one word at gmail.com. And then Jesse will get back to you pretty quickly. Ryan, for your neck of the woods, anybody basically Michigan East, I would say June the 3rd is going to be a big date up in Canada. That's the Grand River X-Wings team tournament. Now, I know that you guys have had this a lot with a lot of communities where they come up with these events and they may have some special rules, which may not mean that AMG wants to get totally involved in, but there's going to be a huge prize pool with the GRX team tournament. It's a fully licensed event at a curling club. So if you've never been to a curling club, the most important rule is that each time you win a game, winners buy the beers that round. So that's a very important rule. And then, the team tournament structure is great. You join the tournament with teams of 4. So each round, each team of 4 plays each other. And the catch is that each team has to pick a different faction and nobody can repeat generic upgrades. So only one of your team of 4 gets to use elusive. Only one of you gets a shield upgrade. Only one of you gets a crack shot, that kind of stuff. So it makes list building really challenging because each round, the top seed of each of your 4 plays the top seed of each of the other 4 that you've been paired up at, and you do rounds like that. And then, of course, there's an after event for socials.
So you're saying each round a team would have to play the same faction completely, make four lists from the same faction, or they need to rotate the players of what faction they're running?
Yeah, great question. So each player's locked into the list they show up with, just like a regular event. But the catch is that you and your wingmen are a team. So you're playing the list you showed up with each round, and you're playing against, if you won one and somebody else in your team won their game, and you're the top ranked of your 4, well, then you would play the top ranked of the other 4 in round 2 kind of thing. And yeah, it goes on from there. So it's always been a lot of fun, and GRX comes up with a great amount of community-run prizes. They've actually already sold 14 teams of 4 for this event, which makes it actually the highest attended event of X-Wing in Canada since 2019 already. They definitely still have a little bit of room left if anybody hears this and wants to register. And I know that Tristan and Greg have been holding a few teams apart in case any of you gentlemen, for example, wanted to join us, or if any of the gents from the East Coast, like the Crates or any of the guys from Jersey or New York wanted to come up for us, we'd hold some seats for them as well. So again, reach out to Star Wars Gaming Ontario, myself, or Tristan Singleton from the GRX if you want more info on that one.
And sorry, where was it at, that one?
Yeah, so the Stampede City Open, I said, is kind of more for your West Coast. Anybody who's thinking more like Ontario area, Marcel, for that kind of June 3rd date, the GRX team tournament's happening in Kitchener-Waterloo. So that's about, I want to say, a 2.5-hour drive from Detroit. To put it in perspective, so for you, it'd be a long haul from Chicago, but there's tons of really affordable accommodations if you guys wanted to make a weekend trip of it. And then if you miss the GRX team tournament, the next kind of bigger than a store champ kind of kit event in Ontario is going to be the Forest City Open, which is at the end of July in London, which is even closer to Detroit than Kitchener. Yeah, that's going to be one. And the boys at the Ewok Squadron in London have already been peppering our Star Wars Gaming Ontario page with all the custom Ewok prizes they put together. I don't know if they have somebody who like owns a 3D printer or something like that, but the amount of prizes you guys have been cooking up is pretty crazy. So yeah, there's that. And then the biggest ones, other than that, I think later in the year, August. So that's August the 19th to 26th, which would be, or sorry, 19th to 20th. So that's 2 weekends after Gen Con. I think Gen Con is the first weekend in August every year, usually.
Yep, and then Nova's Labor Day weekend.
Yes. So in between those two would be what we're calling the Capital City Bloodbath, which is Ottawa, Ontario. It's Eastern Ontario, so great for anybody in upstate New York or Maine, New Hampshire, New England, all that fun stuff. That's going to be Capital City Bloodbath in Ottawa. That's a newer event, second year. They've just gotten a huge boost in terms of support from the local community and space available, prizes, all that fun stuff. But I think the biggest one to look forward to in Eastern Canada at the end of the year is probably going to be either the last week of October, first week of November. That's going to be the St. Lawrence Open. Now that's the tricky one because that's in French Canada. So the organizers are always looking for bilingual tournament organizers. And I know that my good mate Jean-Marc Cuisinot from the Bytown Smugglers in Ottawa is getting looked at to try and be the TO marshal for that one. And, you know, je parle un peu de français, mon homme, myself. So they're looking at all kinds of people to help out with that one. That's going to be a big event as well. That was the last time that Canada had an official nationals, was at the St. Lawrence Open at Abyss. The bad news last time they had that is there was a player cap of 50. I think it's extremely easy to say that the entire community talked to the organizers of the SLO and said that, you know, X-Wing is the biggest game in Canada. They could easily crush a player cap of 50. And I very much doubt that's going to happen again this year. I'm really super confident we're going to get a player cap of 100 plus on the SLO, and that'll be late October, early November. And then you're in Canada winter, so just don't ever come here, essentially, for events. And then, you know, we'll talk to you again in March for Worlds next year.
Go north in the summer, and then be a little bit cooler, and then leave, and don't come back until it's warm at your place again. Yeah. You know, I think so. You said you had some proximity ideas of like, hey, these people should show up to maybe this event. It's like encouraging, like, hey, you're not that far away. You can make the trip. I want to challenge the community. If there are people out there that can go to every single one of those events, not from Canada, I want to hear about it. I want to challenge the community to get that one person or group of people who are willing to go to all of them that aren't from Canada. and
Well,
challenge these proximity guidelines of Timbo and say, you know what, we're breaking them guidelines. We're going from everywhere.
Yeah, it's funny because Kayla and I, just right now as we're talking, actually, as you're talking, and that's why I was asking, like, where exactly? Because I'm multitasking. And I was planning on going to Nova. That's in last weekend of August. Gen Con, it makes sense. I just haven't heard anything about Gen Con. We'll talk about that later. And we're trying to figure out, like, okay, what's our budget? What's our X-Wing budget? Because I do also want to do LVO, but I'd like to do something out of the country. Toronto to me is the easiest because it is a drive from Chicago, but it's from here to Detroit is about 5 hours. So if it's 2 hours more, it's like 7. So it's probably like a 7 hour. It's doable. If I want to save, $500-$600 on planes, it's a doable ride. So I think that to Ryan's point, like how many people could make it, how many places. Right now is a good time to start having that conversation with. If you're traveling with buddies, having that conversation with your travel buddies, and if you have a spouse or a significant other, having that conversation with your spouse or significant other, and being like, "Hey, what's my X-wing budget this year? You know what? Where can I splurge?" And then start making those decisions about, all right, do I want to just hit something that is chronologically like gives me every other month, or do I want to hit something that is geographically, like I want to hit something in the Midwest, I want to hit something in the East Coast, West Coast, Canada, etc. So it's good that we're having this conversation, and it's a little bit overwhelming in just having it this way. So I hope that we can have a good, concise way of mapping it all out between the U.S. and Canada as far as the having a visual and date driven way of seeing everything. And then in there we're also got to sprinkle in the store championship kits and the store championship things that are coming out as well, because I know we've got some dates that were announced in Chicago as well, and I'm sure you guys do as on your end as well. Like all the little local cities are starting to get their store kits in and put in their dates. So there's X-Wing is back on the table, so that's exciting. Yeah. So anyway,
No, you're on the exact same page as I am, Marcel, because you're right. All of these tier 3 events, like your store champ kits, either the Mando's OP kit or the 2023 store kits that have been announced already, they're going to be everywhere they can be. And everywhere they can't be, you're going to have a lot of local kits, local gaming communities trying to just throw an 8 or 15 player event together. And if you've only got so many wife points, brownie points, whatever you want to call them, in the bank for a season, what are the, state level, provincial level, regional level, whatever you want to call them, level events, tier 2 that I want to attend? And then you got your tier 1 events, stuff like Gen Con, right? Stuff like the Stampede City Open or the SLO in Montreal in the fall, that kind of stuff. So I'm in the same boat that you are, where I have to look at, I got professional commitments. I got to go to Newfoundland for a family vacation in August, which is why I'm missing Gen Cons. Not sadly. I can't say that I'm sad to go to Newfoundland, because if you've ever not been to Newfoundland, go to Newfoundland. That's all I can tell you. It's an amazing place. It'll change your life the first time you go there. But see the musical Come From Away first, and then go to Newfoundland, is what I can tell you. Yeah, and with all these kit stuff, to your point, visualizing where they all are, that's the same kind of thing that Brian from the Ewok Squadron and I were thinking. This map that we've put together has two kind of aspects to it. So the first is visualizing where all the squads are across Canada, northern states, south states, wherever. And that's to help regrow some communities so that people can figure out answers to questions like, where are people playing on which nights of the week? Is that closer to my home? Is it closer to my work? What makes sense? I don't know about you guys, but I found my local squad in Toronto originally because it was closer to where I finished my workday, not where I lived. So I ended up going there and not closer to my house. and I ended up finding a squad of guys like Devin Monkhouse and Evan Cameron, Kelvin Lau, some of these amazing Canadian players, and that's how I got into X-Wing in the first place. So having a map resource like that that helps you visualize that kind of stuff, I think is going to be super helpful. So if you guys can help share it across the US, just as a very simple Google form, you know, what's your squad called? Where do you guys play out of? Where is it? That kind of stuff. Brian and I are happy to keep building that up and help really people see where the local kits are all going to be. Those tier 2 type of events where we start finding out later in the year, probably after, you know, May, when AMG finally shares with us what are the next levels of OP events and kits going to look like, we'll start figuring out where those tier 2 events are going to be. And from our perspective, because Canada is just so ridiculously massive in terms of where it is that everybody has to go play with each other, we couldn't wait that long. So we just decided to put together some stuff, some tier 2 level events like the GRX team tournament, like the SLO, that are going to be these big community run events. They're going to have tons of community prizes and fun stuff inside events. And we hope that AMG gets involved with them. But even if they don't, there's still going to be great events for everybody to join. And this is where they're going to happen, you know, at which times, and geographically, here's where they're going to be. So when you boot up this map, if you're living in, you know, New York or Ohio, or even as far down as where the crates are, you know, it's within striking distance. It's a long weekend. It's a lot of driving, but it's definitely there. And then if you're somebody who can afford that type of fly in and fly out option, you know, forget the Ontario events. If you can fly in and fly out of events from the States, go to the SCO in Calgary in June. It's going to be a hoot and a half. The boys in Calgary know how to have fun. I can tell you that. So, you know, that's going to be a good option for you as well. And then for us on the Canada side, we're looking forward to you guys as well in any of those northern states sharing with us where some of your events are going to be, so we can also find those gaps in our schedule to plan those road trips south of the border as well. My buddy Tristan of the GRX has been the governor of Michigan since what, 2018, Ryan?
Only on a trial basis. Yeah, he did come down and take a hyperspace trial from us. Actually, Tim, so just to make sure, you shared the link with me. That is a shareable link to anywhere right now, so I can blast that in Twitch chat.
It is a public Google Map link, yes. I've defaulted the layers of the map to be the squad layers, but there's 2 additional layers that you can toggle on and off, which are the key community tier 2 and 1 events that I'm aware of, at least at this point in the US and Canada, and then the 2024 Store Champ kit hopefuls for Canada. So I'm hoping this is like a map of where we hope all the places that in Canada get a Store Champ kit end up. And when then we get more info, we're going to map out exactly where all the Store Champ kits went, and hopefully feed that information to AMG marketing in 24 and say, you know, guys, this is 2023 where all the Store Champ kits ended up, and this is where all of our players are, not necessarily in all the big cities. So take that into account. Like Toronto, for example. Yes, the Prototype Toronto League's got a lot of notoriety, but during the pandemic, so many players, including myself, moved out of the city. We had kids, we bought houses, we moved out of the city, and because it was the cost of living was just bonkers, so we had to find a place to live. And now I would say the center of X-Wing in Ontario is probably west of the city, in the Tri-Cities area, near where the GRX guys are.
So if somebody wants to get help out with this and get either their squadron, their local, or a larger event, like, you know, for example, I don't see Nova on there. How do they go about doing that?
Thanks for asking, Marcel. I think the easiest thing to do is to fill out the Google Doc. So I shared the Google Doc in the chat with you blokes as well. It's a pretty simple Google Doc. It asks a few questions like, who are you guys? What's your squad called? Where do you guys meet? What days of the week? Do you guys have a Discord, a Facebook? What's the best way for new players who are usually used to playing on their kitchen table or on TTS to reach out to in real life players and book a game? You know, so the map's helpful, and the more squads that share it, the more people that are going to get on it, the faster Brian and I can put it together. And I think hopefully the more it's going to help everybody. it's a public Google map, so yeah, feel free to share it. And if you have any feedback or need any tweaks or anything like that, I'm Timbo on Facebook or Timbo Slice on Discord.
That's awesome. There's been some similar ideas, but looks like the initiative that you guys are taking, especially coming up to the store championship season, definitely draws a lot of players out of the woodworks to come out, see what's new with the game, because they don't have to travel to, say, a big convention, right? We focus on the larger events a lot, but it's really the smaller events, even just like as you said, if we get one of those Mando kits, you plan on doing it a specific night, put that on there too. Whatever way that you can reach out. I do like the way you put it. Would you say regrowth?
Regrow the
Yeah.
communities. Don't rebuild them
Yes.
because they never got broken. Just regrow them.
I love that. I love that.
So James, I want to expect to see your squadron on that map soon. What is it? I want to know.
Mine is I think it's UCX, Utah. It's UCX or UVX. I think the UCX is the events, but I think UVX is the people that play, like Utah Valley X-Wing.
Awesome. And you're right, Will. There's lots of guys that have come up with similar ideas and sometimes better ideas. Like
Yeah.
Oliver Pocknell, for example, has that website.
Yeah, the 186 tracker is super helpful.
Oh.
I was over there for a long time, and yeah, that event tracker was super helpful for like, hey, I got a free weekend. Let me check what's going on this weekend in my area.
Yeah, and we don't try to reinvent the wheel. Like on the map, if you go to the dot in the UK for the 186 Squadron, it's literally just a link to that webpage.
Right, but I think that's the message you want to send out is that you guys can only do so much. It's going to take all of us to really get that map working for everyone's benefit.
Well, Will, why did you have so much fun at Worlds? Was it because you got to get as far as the tournament as you did, win a ghost damage deck or any of the other prizes, or was it because you were there with people from all over the world that also love the hobby that you love?
I mean, it's always the people.
Okay.
Like I could play games with the few locals or whatever, but going out and meeting people that share the same passion is what keeps me coming back to the X-Wing.
See, for me, before I broke my ankle in a way that I could only describe as nightmarish, I used to play a lot of competitive rugby. And one of the things that went along with competitive rugby was going on tours. We did tours that were bus tours to, Penn State, Pittsburgh, all sorts of fun stuff. And while I can definitely say that XWing tours are a lot more tame, despite some of the stories you guys might have heard about our Canadian XWing tours, that for me was why I got into, organizing these types of things. So, for the SLO in Montreal in the fall, I'm definitely going to try and put together something like a train or a hotel or something like that to make it easier for people to get there. Just because, I don't know, the more the merrier, right?
That's right.
I love what you said earlier, though, Will, about how Tier 1 events don't have to be what really gets people playing, because it is ultimately the local kit, the local squad night on Tuesday, Wednesdays, whatever it is, the local kits. Those are the kinds of things that keep people learning, trying new things, and getting into it. And if I have one thing to shout out to everybody, it's don't build your squad the way you think you need to be at premier level events. Build your squad for fun. We had the prototype Toronto League where our original mantra was you had to play 8 games over 8 weeks and you couldn't repeat a named pilot or a same list of generics. And it drove us to not play Dash Jake or not play Dash Corin or not play, mirror matches of Miranda, Nim over and over again, those kinds of things. That's what's going to get people playing fun. games, again, if you ask me. Or watch the Mando season 3 finale and then end up like me, where you build a list with Bo-Katan and just have a bow ton of fun with it. So,
Oh, ton of fun. Nice. So,
I guess.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was probably gonna transition to something else, but if you want to stay on this, Marcel, go for it.
No, yeah, I was doing that as well. I saw
Same
the highlight.
wavelength.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of like maybe ways to promote more casual fun and just enjoyable X-Wing, right? I kind of want to go into how we as players, and for some of us community leaders or organizers, or even just if I'm talking to the average listener right now, if you're not the leader or if you're not someone who's sort of organizing any events, what are some things we can all do, actionable things we could do to help continue this momentum after Worlds and help our own communities continue to grow?
That's Chicago, from what I hear, has been kind of booming. I know Joshua is I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. He knows what I'm talking about. He posted earlier this week that Fair Games had the highest just in store for a weekly night that it's had in a long time. I know that the local store that just opened up, I think it's called Spellbound or something like that Tim Woodbury runs, and also the one that Nick Sperry from 312 runs, they've been getting really, they've been getting not enough, more and more, but more consistent. And one of the things, as myself, not being one of the people that are driving those, not being a Josh, a Tim, a Nick, or anything like that, is showing up. And that's something that I know that I catch myself not doing. Like I complain that there's not enough people to play with, but then I am the one being on a Monday night, because Tim changed it to Tuesday. So I just, come on, bro. But on Thursday, Nick does it on Thursday. I'm like, yeah, I'll show up, and then I don't, and that's just been a constant for like the last 6 months. So I think as a non-organizer, the best thing you can do to help promote X-Wing in your local is show up. That's the number one thing you can do, is show up, and then the number two thing you can do is don't be a jerk when you do show up. So what I mean by don't be a jerk is understand where you're going and for what purpose. So if you're going to a store that has a lot of casual, players that play once a week, to try out different things and just have fun, don't show up with one Worlds and try to knock people out and use it as your stomping ground. Like understand the environment. So show up is number one, and two, understand the environment. And if you're experienced and even if you're practicing for a large event, just be upfront and be like, hey, I'm practicing for a large event. I have a list that's intended to be very, I'm hoping to do really well with this list. Do you mind the game? And it'll be, and at least give people the heads up. So I think those two are the primary things you can do, because one, if you don't show up, local's not gonna grow, and I'm a culprit of that because I don't show up. I'm super lazy. And two is, if you do show up, just don't push people away by either playing something that's super competitive when somebody else is playing something that's a little bit more casual, or show up with the mentality of being not only a rules lawyer, but a rules lawyer and a like, oh, that die is cocked, judge, art check, just mellow out a little bit.
There's nothing wrong with an art check on a league night, though, Marcel. I mean,
no, there's nothing wrong with an art check, but that was just it was analogous to just being like
Yeah, don't be a
super.
hyper gamer if you're not surrounded by hyper gamers.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah. I
totally
mean,
get it.
we do art checks in local all the time, and art check there is no TO, so we just ask the table next. So I was like, hey, you might take a look at this, make the decision, and then if there's nobody next to us, we just roll a die, and it's a 50-50. We can't figure it out, but so I'm not saying don't play the game the way that it's intended to be played. It's just don't be.
Can I
about it.
build off of that, Marcel? If I reset my camera here, but you are referencing the one, or we'll say one of the most important things of any relationship, including the ones you have with your fellow X-Wing players, is communication. If you're not showing up for X-Wing because they're trying to play it Saturday night for some reason, why don't you just let them know? Let them know, like, hey, is anybody who's also not playing on Saturday want to play on Tuesday? Anything like that. That communicating, same thing of like, hey, anybody going to the store championship? Because I'm trying to practice for it. I think I got something nobody else is flying that has potential. Just little things like that. And that might even spur the kind of things of like, oh, I'm trying something similar, right? To get a discussion going. So like I said, just communicating, even at the, play devil advocate on that too. If there's somebody who is ruining your fun, you got to let them know. If you're not showing up to your game tonight, you don't want to. Now you don't do it in front of everybody, maybe, but just be like, "Yo, dude, you really ruining the vibe at X-Wing night. Like, we got to come to a mutual agreement. We both got to have some fun here." And that's something that we've all been playing X-Wing for a long time. We've been as many, hopefully, good relationships. There's certainly time to mend those old wounds as well, if that may be the case. We've all, gone to that local event where someone was taking it too seriously. But that's, if you put out that, I don't know why I'm using the word vibe, but if you're putting out that aura of like, I'm coming to chill, I'm coming to have fun. Have you seen this new paint job I got on my gauntlet? That can easily be reciprocated as long as you let people know. Most people have like Facebook pages, though I know Facebook's getting not used as much anymore. So like Gold Squadron, we primarily use our Discord. What's some other ways that people communicate through these X-Wing channels?
I don't know. In Canada, do you guys like send moose with like notes tied to the antlers or something?
It's carrier pigeons or snow owls.
Okay.
Snow owls, yeah.
Yeah, snow owls. But I like what you guys are saying, because it's the same thing back home here, is that just preamble the game. Make sure if you arrange a game in advance on a league night with somebody, or if you rock up on the day, that both of you are on the same page. Is this going to be totally cash? And, who cares about a cocked eye? Or are we preparing for something serious? And we both brought lists we've been working on, and let's not let each other get away with dropping a proton bomb in the system phase, because sometimes you gotta feel that pain to learn. And I love the Nickel City X-Wing boys in Buffalo for that. Just a few days ago, I came down there because they play extended, and we don't do that in St. Catharines or Niagara Falls, our side of Niagara Falls, here where I live. So I drive about half hour, 35, 40 minutes down to Buffalo for authentic buffalo wings for one, and X-Wing extended for two. And it was playing with these guys, and they're like, yeah, you're a guest, so we're not going to hard it up on you, but typically, we feel the pain to learn. And I'm like, I love that, because to your point, Will, if I usually play on my Wednesday nights with folks that are more junior, or they're usually playing HOTAC and everybody's helping each other, that kind of thing, it's difficult sometimes to know when you should say, Yeah, well, you forgot your trigger, and we
Right.
moved through ships. So, do I be the jerk, or is that where are we at with that? Right. So
Sure.
it's so important to start the game on the same page. And I think I was talking about it with Liam from the Sith Takers about this when we were in Chicago together. I have trouble turning it off sometimes. I narrate the game rounds, and I narrate the system phase and stuff like that. Okay, initiative 2, initiative 1, who's next? And I have trouble turning it off sometimes in competitive games, and I find myself reminding my opponents about stuff that they were probably going to forget. And I'm like, well, geez. I guess that's me though, because I don't want to win again that way. I don't enjoy winning a game that way.
No, I'm the same way. I'd rather win with them making no mistakes, right? It just like I'd rather you also be at your best and us both be at our best. See how it comes out the victor.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the. How many times have you just like deployed a ship wrong and just like rocked, like round 1, right? Or bumped your ships because you set them up at the weird angle or something like that. But like that is something that we in my local group, we've always just like, dude, just fix it. Like we are not even in the fight yet. Like we're trying to get a good game in here. If you just take 3 damage on an obstacle round 1, like it makes it. I don't get the win the Rock did, right? So that is the. I feel that as well, to where trying to get a good game, trying to have fun, and I think that another thing is that talking about going to the game store and stuff, a goal, right? Because we're all trying to have fun, trying to learn and get better at the game, but you do have to prioritize the fun of your opponent as well. Like recognizing that, like, wow, he just blanked out like 8 dice in a row, like, and I just natted 4 hits. Like, you really can't be like, yeah, like cheering and exciting as much as you'd want to. You got to recognize that they need to have fun as well. Not that you have to like throw the game or anything, but to match their attitude, if you will.
No, it's true. Is there anybody else here who's also in sales and marketing professionally?
Mm-hmm.
What's one of the first?
There.
Yeah, on that board. So what's one of the first rules of sales? You never sell anybody anything unless you know you can come back next week and sell them something else next time, right?
Yep.
That's the
Or
concept.
also, I normally this is on the service end of things, but you don't treat the person that comes in like a customer. You treat them like a guest at your house. That's where you're gonna get the best interactions.
Yeah. No, true.
But off that tangent or whatever, we can do. So we mentioned prior, like, hey, when we want to communicate, when we want to get games together, or when we want to figure out what events are, the how the communicating is happening, right? We know Facebook groups, we know Discords, right? So be active on those of your local scene, of your state scene, of your regional, whatever scene that encompasses a majority of your groups, or even just a small, like be a part of a couple of them, right? It's not going to hurt to be a part of a couple Discord servers or 4 Facebook groups or more. Like, who cares? If you, that's just more opportunities for you to post about your store night or your event that you know of, or an event that's across town that you want more people to show up to because you also want to go and enjoy and have more fun. Or you just thinking, hey, I can't make this weekend, but I want this store to do well. Like, promote it, talk about it, get people to know about it. So finding ways to make sure that it's not just you that gets part of most of the good action within your area, but also trying to promote it so that when you have the availability to go back to a store you couldn't make one weekend, that there will be enough people there. There will be a recurring group that shows up and wants to enjoy X-Wing or whatever game. I just recently took, and I talked with the other mods of the X-Wing Michigan Discord server, actually just recently transitioned to a complete Star Wars gaming Michigan server, so that we started to throw out invites to the Armada group, the Legion group, people interested in Shatterpoint, and just being like, hey, we want all stores in Michigan possible to have some type of good Star Wars gaming fun interaction and consistency. And if anything, cross promoting to other games can also mean some of those people are like, hey, I heard this game's pretty cool. I play Legion. Maybe I'll try out X-Wing this night and go to this store.
Or vice versa.
Exactly, right?
You
I mean,
bring
I've dipped my toes into Legion and Armada before. Yeah. And, you know, most of the time, people are more than happy to say, hey, you know, if you just walk up to a table like, hey, I've seen this game before. You give me a little quick lowdown on this, or what do you think about it? Most people take the time and talk to you, you know, if you're at the store, or even better, if before you know which store to go to and find the games, because any person could just be interested in a game, show up at a night, and it's not that night's game. So the more information you get out there to know when the games are being played of any type on Discords, on Facebook groups, anywhere and everywhere you can find. Get the words out there. Jason Grimwolf in the chat. By the way, it's Jason's birthday today.
Happy birthday.
Jason. He talked specifically about recently. He started putting posters. We're going old school here, right? We're not even online anymore. He printed out posters on his local store's doors and windows. That all it was just, we have X-Wing on this night. Here's a QR code on here that's a link to our Discord server, and these are the nights we play. And he said it boomed it. Just a simple poster on a door. Doesn't have to be fancy. It could be black and white print. You can take images from online to put it together. You don't need to be some, you know, Adobe Photoshop's, you know, savant to figure out how to print a poster, right? Just put something together, put information on it, ask your local store if they wouldn't mind putting it up. There you go. Easy.
I love what you're saying, Ryan, because Star Wars Gaming Ontario went the same direction, and now we're really funneling a lot of multi-games into the same spot. The map we built, same thing. It maps out Armada crews and Legion crews, because there's some places that have larger Legion communities than X-Wing communities in parts of Ontario. So, yeah, I mean, we're all here to have fun. I mean, geez, you were at Adepticon. Star Wars Gaming was literally like, what, 1/3 of the largest hall, just the 3 games?
I feel like it was half the hall.
At least half.
Not even a third. Because there was one half that was actually like, hey, here's all the stuff that like the vendors and AMG themselves and things had set up. And like the other, because I missed the Adepticon last year, so I don't know how big that was. But like the other half was almost all Star Wars minus, I guess, so they had the section of Marvel Crisis Protocol. But I mean, if they want to next year, they can make that whole section Shatterpoint and put Marvel Crisis Protocol in more of the hall somewhere else. Like they could make Star Wars a large majority of Adepticon completely. Which is great.
So we were talking about community and stuff like that, and I promised a couple of your guys, diehard Canada fans who listen to your podcast a lot and love the content that you guys put together. I promised them that I would ask you guys this question, which is kind of like an origin story question. I'm going to ask James first because I know him the least. And it's kind of like, I want you to think back to that very first time that you graduated from kitchen table X-Wing with your mates to like that first kit thing. So you're not on any Discord channels, you're not in any communities, you're not wearing a squad shirt. And it was just the first time that you decided, you know what, I've played a few rounds, I know the rules, I'm probably not going to win, but I'm going to have a lot of fun trying. You know, walk us through that first experience that you had doing that. I think I've heard Marcel's origin story on this before. I'm probably going to ask him again. Go ahead, James.
Thanks. Yeah, my first game was actually the last 1.0 store tournament at my local store, and they had an odd number of people. So I was like, oh, I'll play. I've never played before. And someone handed me a list. I think it was like Poe, Han, and something else. And I got wrecked by some ridiculous 1.0 lists all day. It was just like like the Ray Falcon stuff going on, the TLT stuff going on, and I was miserable. And I was like, I never want to play this game again. It was so terrible. But thankfully, 2.0 had been announced pretty recently to that, and I was like, I'm just gonna wait for this new version because this version is terrible. Why would you people play this? But yeah, after that, I jumped in and I was actually bought the conversion kits and got like a big Rebels cash from somebody, and bought the conversion kit, and actually was basically from 2.0 release was the showrunner for my store. So went from like not playing at all to running events in about like a month after 2.0 released. So and after that, it was a lot of fun. I went to I played a couple of like big events and got played really well in those events, and then after that I moved to Salt Lake. So I was previously in England with over there in north of London. So
And then one pandemic later, you end up commentating the World Championships.
yeah, actually, like how I started with GSP was like Dion was just like, he's a cool guy, and then I started commentating on like the Saturday nights X-Wing stuff, and then eventually he was like, okay, this guy's good enough, I guess. And then I started helping out with like the online events that we were doing, and yeah, that one thing led to another, and now I'm one of the faces for X-Wing for the world's event.
And so I think you completely encompass the Ron Burgundy that escalated quickly.
Yeah, yeah,
That's you.
yeah. Because like
I think someone needs to superimpose your face on that meme, and then it's an easy win for X-Wing.
yeah,
I really
Yeah,
got
'cause it
to
was-
fast.
yeah. Because like our previous the previous guy that was running X-Wing for the store got out after 1.0. So there was a little vacuum there, and I was like, well, I'll be here for a little bit, so I might as well help out and help build the community. And that was actually my first miniatures events or miniatures game at all, was X-Wing. So I went from like playing board games to doing this, and been enjoying it ever since.
Yeah, closest thing I came to X-Wing, closest thing I came to miniatures before X-Wing was maybe Axis and Allies.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah,
Heated
Rebellion.
games of Risk.
Yeah, heated games of Risk and Rebellion. Yeah.
All right, Tim, who do you want to hear from next?
Well, this isn't my podcast. I feel like I'm
All right, let me say, I just got to share this. So, for work reasons, I've been deep diving and researching and just getting into different AI functions, right? The ChatGPT plus other functions that built into like accounting systems and marketing systems, and anyway, I'm not going to get too deep into it. But just out of curiosity, when you said, well, I already heard your origin story, I asked the AI to invent my origin story. So here is my artificial origin story. You guys ready? All right.
I'm so ready for this.
Once upon a time, in a galaxy not so far away, I was a young Star Wars fan who had always been fascinated by the iconic X-Wing starfighters from the movies. I had collected a few Star Wars action figures and had built a few model kits of the ships, but I was always looking for new ways to engage with the Star Wars universe. One day, while browsing the shelves at a local hobby store, I came across a box of X-Wing miniatures. Intrigued, I picked up the box and examined the detailed models of X-Wing, TIE fighters, and other Star Wars ships that were included in the game. I decided to give it a try and bought the game. As I started playing with friends, I was hooked. The game's tactical gameplay, where I had to maneuver ships through space and make strategic decisions, quickly became a favorite pastime. I loved how the game allowed me to create some of the epic space battles from movies in fun and engaging ways. As I continued to play, I became more and more invested in X-Wing, in the X-Wing miniatures community. I attended local tournaments, met friends who shared my passion for the game, and even started painting my own ships to make them look even more like the ones from the movies. In the end, X-Wing miniatures became more than just a game for me. It was a way to connect with other Star Wars fans, to explore my creativity, and to relive some of my favorite moments from the movies in new and exciting ways.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
That is like spot on for about 50% of the
I was gonna say,
community.
when you got to the painting part, that's where I'm like, well,
Yeah.
whatever.
I painted people. I paid people to paint my stuff, but I mean, that is quite.
They've been reading blogs apparently. All right.
They've been. I don't
We gotta-
know.
we gotta-
It's plugged in. That is pretty.
No.
Ask it if I should 2-bank or 3-forward next time. See if it helps.
Just have it in there, like, hey, I'm stuck here.
Now, Marcel's origin story has something very unique about it that he probably hasn't shared with you blokes, which is that one day, not too many years ago, he had the very supreme pleasure of playing a man named John Doyle. I have also played John Doyle before. God rest him. He passed away during the pandemic. We miss him a lot. John is the only X-Wing player I have ever met who's blind. And he is quite something to have seen and played against in your life. Marcel, you were not the only man, myself included, who came that bloody close to losing to John Doyle and his whisper, if you can imagine, a man who has to be told where the obstacles are going down, because he usually played with a helper, and he got told where the obstacles were going down at the beginning of the game, roughly range 2 from which edges and stuff like that. He'd have to commit the whole thing to memory, commit where your ships got put down to memory, where his ships got put down to memory, and then he'd play through the game. Marcel's aversion to slow play definitely worked against him in the match, but he emerged victorious in the end, and John was a complete class act about it as usual. But you talk about community and experiences throughout your span of playing X-Wing. I would say that's probably one in your cap, a feather in your cap for always, mate.
Yeah, no, I'll always remember that, and I'll always remember that trip and every trip I made to Toronto. It's definitely if anybody from the United States that's watching that has never taken the trip to Canada to play in one of their events, it's amazing. And although Canada has been on a winning streak as of late, when we go up, we usually spank you guys. So
there's a lot of definitely back and forth. You're right, but you guys have definitely taken one of our nationals, and we haven't taken one back from you. So
yeah.
The chalkboard's got one more notch on your side than ours for right now.
So don't let us down, you people listening.
Will, you want to go next?
Yeah, mine's kind of straightforward. I think it started with I forget what I was buying, but I saw the just announced Raider, or hadn't even been released yet, just announced. And I saw that they had the Corvette. And I was like, well, that's the first ship you see in Star Wars. And that's what drew me out. I was like, this epic model or whatever. I was like, oh, they play a game with this too? And that I started looking at the different miniatures. Ended up getting some after watching whatever that Will Wheaton show was. But he very specifically, he played a very terrible game. Don't watch that.
I remember watching that one too. It was so bad.
It's really not great. Watch it back, very cringy at this time. But Will Wheaton, I think it was Seth Green and their wives, maybe. Either way, I get some miniatures, and I'm just playing. We're 1v1, and eventually I'm watching more competitive games, watching old World Championship games, right? And some of the new streams that people were doing. I was like, oh, okay, well, we should play this way, and started learning a little bit more of the correct way of playing. No more double barrel roll on Vader and things like that. and so once we started learning the rules or whatever, that's when I was on like a 10-loss streak against my girlfriend at the time. I was like, I don't understand. She plays this once a week with me, and I watch videos of this every day, and somehow she's beating me. There's got to be something I'm doing wrong. And eventually I was just like, I got to find someone else to play, someone else to tell me why I'm terrible at this game. So I look up Facebook, find a group, local group out of the game. I was just typed in game stores or whatever, right? And went down to the game store, continued to lose. They're like, then that first night, they're like, hey, you know, if you're looking for groups to play with, there's one out in Iowa City who's holding a store championship. I was like, oh, you guys play like tournaments and
Yeah,
stuff?
store
with this?
championship at that time sounded this big, right?
Yeah, I was like, I heard worlds, so I was like, well, everything's got worlds, but I was like, you guys even hold like little things. Are like, oh, it's not little, it's like 20 people or something. I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, I got a free night. Headed out to Iowa City to check it out before the event. Saw that those guys were cool. Went to the tournament. I flew a terrible list. I had a bunch of fun, and then from there, playing with those guys, not in Davenport in the Quad Cities is what we call it. The playing with those guys, that's when I was able to start talking about lists, and they're like, yeah, no one runs these upgrades because they are terrible. Like, stop, like, you should run these upgrades. You should buy a defender to get predator. I was like, I probably should. So that's the start of it, is that actually I came from competitive, not board games, but like competitive, like athletic games. Whatever, it was like football back in the day, or at the time I was doing roller derby. So like going to tournaments, traveling as a group to go out to a big event on the weekends. That was just, you know, normal. It was what you do. Go out, do after the after party kind of stuff. I was like, well, these are my kind of people. This is what I want to do. Except for instead of talking about skating, we could talk about Star Wars instead. Yeah, just fell in love with the community. Eventually kept going to larger and larger events until I eventually made the commitment to go to Adepticon, which is where I really met all these guys.
And then 1 or 2 games of looping Chewy later, you're
I mean, yeah, a little bit of luck, a couple beers later, and I'm wrapped up in it still. Still watching XWing videos every day.
That's it. But before I ask Ryan, is there actually anybody on this call that knows Dion's origin story, or do we have to ask him another night?
I believe he lost like 50 games to his cousin or brother.
No, he lost everywhere, not just to his cousin and brother. He lost everywhere.
Yeah.
Like he lost for like 3 or 4 months straight before he finally won a game.
But
and then he lost
like
3 or 4 months straight after that, probably.
I think it was similar-ish to mine, where, you know, playing with your, you know, your brother, your family, or best friends, and then, you know, maybe if I play somebody else, I could beat them. So you start looking for different people to play with and get wrapped up in these game stores.
Yeah, so mine was, because I remember the list I brought. I don't remember what kind of event it was. It might have been a store champ, might have been just a organized event thing at the local store. But I started with a terribly built Dash and 2 HLC B-Wings, because I thought B-Wings are still to this day one of my favorite ships in Star Wars. Like, I want to fly B-Wings. Give me some B-Wings. Dash throws 4 dice. I'm going to bring 3 things with 4 dice attacks. So if I recall correctly, old HLC had the full arc and not just the bullseye back in those days. I think I won maybe 1 game, right? Got trounced by some other stuff. I think this was around the time where people started to bring... Everyone at the event was like, who brought 4 TLT Y-Wings? Those are bad people. like, well, maybe one person showed up with them or something. So it was around that time, which was episode 7, the core set, the Force Awakens core set. So other things started to pop up around that, and what's funny is even that being my first event, I can't remember much specifically after that besides jumping past a whole bunch of 1.0 stuff. My first time actually being introduced to the game, one of my friends offered his lot to me, because a couple years prior he was like, "Hey, I think this game's gonna be really cool." And this was like very early first edition, like core set and maybe wave 2 at most. Me and my buddies were all playing Warhammer 40k at the time, which I was terrible at. I never won a game against them. They were all better than me, and I hated playing. It turns out I hated playing like 3-4 hour games and losing every time. So I was like, skirmish game seems pretty nice, but I was so burnt out on any miniatures game after my experiences with 40k, or at that time I was like, I don't want to get into another one. Don't show me X-wing. I don't need dials and specific movement. That sounds terrible. I just use a measuring tool and move your squad or something. That sounds way too restrictive.
Close enough. Roll 20 dice.
Yeah, right. Just roll a bunch of d6s. What's this d8 stuff? I don't know, man. It's funny to come back like a couple years later when he's not playing X-wing anymore, and I'm like, that seems interesting, you know. And he's like, why didn't you just play the game with me a couple years ago? I'm like, you guys all killed me with miniatures games before. I wasn't in it. So it was weird to like, he then was getting out of X-wing, even though he wanted to get me into X-wing. So he sold me all his stuff, and then I go and play in this event with 2B Wings and Dash.
Well, thanks, guys, for sharing those stories. Because, like I said, so many Canadians listen to your guys' content, have for years, myself included, and love that you guys keep putting it on, because it's a staple, you know, weekly. It reminds us that our hobby goes beyond the local game store. It goes beyond the local community. It is a global pastime. There's another question I wanted to ask, and maybe I'll go in the opposite direction. I don't know how we're doing on time, Ryan, so take the lead on that one.
Oh, you're the host, man. You keep come on.
I think we're still doing okay. We're not
We're fine. We go for about 2 hours or so-ish.
I wanted to ask a question about formats. So when it comes to really attracting kitchen table players or getting people to take that graduating step from, you know, casual play to really considering their lists a little bit more thoroughly and really looking at whether they have a competitive edge and stuff like that, do we believe that standard and extended should be the staples for community league nights and stuff like that? Or is there a place for Aces High, for Epic, for Hotac, for stuff like that mixed up in it? Because, you know, like my own experience right now where I live in Niagara region is a really vibrant Hotac community. These people are serious about it. They have been playing for months. They've got custom 3D printed ships. They've got characters that have ships that basically have like, you know, like if it was a Lamborghini spaceship, it would be a Lamborghini spaceship essentially. And they've got, you know, all kinds of crazy scenarios that they've been working off and stuff like that. And they have a great time with it. And I love playing with them every now and again, but I find myself sometimes in a situation where I write to the group ahead of time and say, you know, I'd love to get a standard game in this night as well. And maybe I'll put my Hawk in the Hotac game and just one forward me for 3 turns in a row. And then, you know, I'll check in, that kind of stuff. So I'm really curious what you guys think about whether or not, if we want to regrow communities at the premier event level, is there a place for those types of casual formats at league nights, or does it encourage people away from standard competitive formats?
So I would say, from my experience, and I think every city and every community is a little bit different, but in Chicago we have a lot of communities, and in general, whether I play a fair games or play the pastimes when pastimes was going on, or, you know, Dice Dojo or any of the other ones locally, is people are typically looking to play whatever is the version that will be played at store championship kits or at major events. And now Chicago might be a little bit of a not an oddity, but it's a little bit different than if you're playing like in the middle of Nebraska or something like that. And people aren't doing as many competitive events because they just don't have the events close to them. Like they have to go very far away. So they may be playing more casual type games, but at least, we've tried, or back when Pastimes was the pastime of old, we tried doing like scenario nights, and when I say scenario nights, there wasn't scenarios at the time, but it was, like whether it was Aces High or
Mario
Hotak is
Kart.
like, yeah, when you say Hotak, you mean Atari
Yeah, there
cluster
was
or
a
something.
Atari cluster.
Yeah, there you go.
Playing Mario
Like,
Kart. There's a whole bunch of fun little.
yeah,
Sites.
we would do that, and we would organize it like ahead of time, and we would probably either do it on an off night that's not the league night, or do it like once a month or something like that, and continue the campaign that way. Typically, it was more of whatever is being played at tournaments that people kind of gravitated to, and I tend to agree with that because when you're looking to grow X-Wing and you're looking to get people like really invested into X-Wing in the community that, as we know it, not just X-Wing like
premier level.
yeah, because not just the premier level. I mean, it just in the community level. I'm not going to call it premier, but I'm going to say at the community level where it's building a community. Um, it 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 really, that community really happens in those events when you meet people outside of your local game store, and that's where you like the hook, line, sinker. That's where it happens. When you meet somebody that is outside of the people that you play with on a regular basis, even if you have like a 10-person or 12-person local night, but that's the same 10 or 12 people you see for 6 months, and then you go out to let's say the Texas one, the Lone Star Open or something like that in Texas, and you meet people from California, from Nevada, somebody flew in from Virginia and Chicago. That's what ends up hooking you the most, and that's really what gets you from being a local player to, like, even if you're not traveling to all the tournaments, at least participating in Discords, going on YouTube, watching the content, going on the Fly Better page, and engaging and interacting with the community at a larger scale. And that is all tied together with playing like the standard version that everybody else is playing during those events. And that's a little bit, even though I have a soft spot in for my friends in Europe that are stuck still on unextended, like like Gisley and the other people that are, I understand, but that's contained to that local spot. Like, they're not going to attend the Worlds playing the legacy version of 2.0, even if they think it's more fun. That's got a finite growth. There it can only grow to a certain finite
It's got a shelf
size.
life. It's got a shelf life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you want that community feel, even if it's a game that you preferred less than the game that came prior, that's what's going to open you up to the community, to the community at a broader level.
At
And
large,
yeah, at large. And again, maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm personally more into the competitive scene than I am into the casual. Like, I'm not going to play droid soccer. It's just no interest to me. And I don't know so I'm curious to hear from the other folks here, but that's my point is, if you're trying to grow the game and grow the experience as a community, you have to play what people outside of your local store are playing. Like, you have to play what the broader community is playing in order
as long
to.
as it's not extended.
Hmm?
as long as it's not extended.
I think extended is fine as well because it's still the same rule set. It's still it's different ships, but it's still like I'm cool with extended. But
Mate,
what I'm saying is
drive
like playing
35
different
minutes
rules
to
or
Buffalo. I drive 35 minutes to Buffalo to get my fix to have my Star Vipers on the table every now and again, man.
yeah. Like I'm super cool with extended because they're playing the same rule set. They're playing the same points for the most part, and it's still the same game, but when you're talking about like Heroes of Atari Cluster, or you're talking about a game that does a store that does primarily Mario Kart all the time, or X-Wing Kart or whatever they call it, or a game that does a legacy version of X-Wing, whether it's 1.0 or 2.0 before the 2.5. You're kind of
You're cutting yourself off from
limiting the growth. You're cutting yourself from the rest of the community, I think.
I get it completely. Yeah.
It's interesting that you would say that. I mean, I would agree that the reason why everybody gravitates towards the competitive style of X-Wing is because you could just show up with a list and everybody understands the game and rules that you're expecting to play. I don't know who is probably someone more familiar with Magic than me, but to me that was like Magic, 60 cards, whatever the rule set at the time was, right? That's if you're playing football, you expect to have 11 players on the field, right? That's so like there is something that you should expect to play that standard if you go to a game store. But I think if you're trying to, like, if you're going to a new game store, right? Like, I wouldn't show up with your 3D printed Hotech stuff, and if you don't know if they're into that or not. But I do think that these kind of casual, community-driven formats is what you call them. A different
formats. Yes.
I do think that they are great, though, to bring in players who aren't competitive, who aren't going to a tournament, right? They just wanna hang out on a Wednesday night and move some ships around. So I think you. Obviously, it goes back to the communicating, right? If everyone's practicing for the tournament, that's the default then. But setting up those particular events, letting your group know that, hey, I want to do. I got this great idea for a Mario Kart track. It's going to be really interesting. When can we play it? And put that information out. And I'm sure if you put in the effort, someone will be also interested in doing it. Someone's like, I've been building 20-point lists for however long, a year now. I could use something to reinvigorate my interest in just the X-Wing, even if they're not trying to win the next store champion or something like that. So I do think you still need to prioritize both, but it does greatly depend on where you're going. Brian, do you guys ever do any casual events up in Michigan? Or formats? I keep saying events.
It hasn't been too common. Most of the time we do free play days, and then I try and organize some sort of slight competitive level event just for people who may want to have just some organized capacity and just keep it simple with the current competitive format. But with the Child of Mandalore kit that become available, and the droid, whatever the droid soccer thing is, being things that are available to my local store, I'm not opposed by any means to run those type of events. And I actually want to kind of maybe even take the conversation, at least by my contribution, even further back on the experience scale. How effective do you believe something like a demo night would be for a store, advertise that probably about a month in advance, so that any person that we just talked about who's never taken it away from their kitchen table, that may really not want to have a competitive event be their first experience, or maybe they're just maybe not comfortable just showing up and not knowing all the rules, but they want to still get out there, or maybe have someone because maybe they don't have someone else they know that knows more about the game to teach them in person, right? Do we think that there's let me ask this: have you guys ever ran a demo night, or been part of, or know of a demo night that had you would consider a pretty good success rate of people actually showed up and wanted to play the game?
I didn't run it myself, but it was an event that was a 1v1. It was a 40-point ship, so it was first edition. But on the premise that you were encouraged to bring not just like yours, but an extra ship or two, right? So anybody who didn't own the game yet, maybe only played on that kitchen table with a buddy, they felt just as welcome to show up, because they didn't need to be the every expansion collector, right? They could just show up, do quick, smaller games where you could really focus on like learning and having fun. And that seemed to work out very well because there was a shorter day, right? Shorter rounds, things like that. And it got a couple of those people to just be like, I'm buying a core set today. Like, I'm addicted now. So I would say, yeah, like even whatever you think would be best, but putting it out there, like, hey, you don't even have to own the game. Like, we will give you the things you need to play the game. Just that emphasizing that learning of it. I don't know if I would take that back. I would say even like maybe we were talking about flying simple lists. Like, you might want to bring to your game night and start advertising it that you would be willing to run a demo game. Bring just Luke and some TIE fighters stashed away in case somebody was like, what are you guys playing? I was like, let me show you. Set a couple of these dials here.
Yeah, it is probably good to, and probably also ties in a little bit back to what we talked to earlier, is if you go to a store kit night or the store night in general, if you have a competitive list in mind that you're bringing, it's probably helpful to bring a second list that is more on the casual side if you're not sure what could happen either way. And I like to actually, and when you mentioned the starter kits, I think that's a big thing, because coming up soon, we're going to be getting the Rebel Imperial starter kit, and assuming the rest of the faction starter kits eventually in the future. So I think what could be a really easy thing to do is not only obviously advertise that on regular nights you're willing to teach any new people, is actually set up events where, and you could talk to your local store and make sure they advertise it. I think that's the big thing, is that it can't just be word of mouth through already existing XWing Discords or Facebook groups, because those new people aren't in there. That's not where your audience is.
No.
You need to have the stores advertise it, posters on the door, etc. But maybe there could be two different ways a new person could come try out the game. One, just people like me, you, anyone here, provides a list. We got all the stuff for you. It's at the table. Pick a side, and I will show you how to play the game. Or grab your friend, and I will kind of help mediate the game between you two. Or help maybe drive the sales of the core sets. Offer a way to say, hey, if you pick one of those two faction core sets right there, that's yours to take home, and you play the game.
Ooh, it's almost like a draft format where like everybody just buys a core set and that's what you get to play with. That would be interesting. That's an interesting format, actually.
Maybe
hadn't
the
even thought
store
about that.
might like, because I obviously wouldn't want to charge anyone to play in a demo event. So maybe if you could talk to the store to make even a small discount on the core set, if they are willing to play the game there at the store in a demo night, might be worth it in the store's best interest. Say, hey, even if it's just like $5 off the core or whatever, or $10 off the core, whatever percentage they want to come to.
Or just like add on to that product, like a little like a little sticky note or like a little piece of like one of the flyers, and put on that thing like, hey, we actually play this game on these days. You know, here's our Discord, and you come by and we'll give you a free demo game, and we can teach you how to play the game.
That's a good one
Like
too. Yeah, they could.
I love what you guys are all saying about making the formats more approachable and making them the ways that players that, to Ryan's point, may not have been exposed to the normal community channels, seeing that there's something going on there. It's so easy for us to lose perspective sometimes that league nights, as we all know them, can be intimidating, you know, for newer players. Think about games that aren't X-Wing. You know, think about darts or bowling. I like darts, I like bowling, but rocking up to a bowling league night that you're not already a part of and you don't have a matching shirt of everybody else in the bowling alley, it can be intimidating for a new player.
No, I'm
Even if you're an adult. Right? So these ideas are great. And it's important to find that balance, like Marcel was saying earlier, where, yes, we're approachable. There's lots of fun guys that keep it casual. You know, we like to have that conversation in advance of how we play, demo nights, fly it before you buy it. But ultimately, I liked what Marcel was saying, was that where you want to go eventually is the structure of a league night where people are playing the rule sets of the games that are going to help them get out of their casual league nights into those tier 2 level, you know, events that are going to really offer them the really competitive runway that they want to explore where they can go as a gamer. And you know, that's kind of the origin story of the prototype Toronto League that we did originally, which is where we said, okay, we're going to match the rule set of the game to the T. There's no double barrel rolling Vader like Will said, right? There's no you know, having, you know, 3 sets of Vader in the same list or any of that fun stuff. But we're also going to create a way to drive our players to not net list. So you can't repeat name pilots. You know, you can't repeat the same names of a generics, or you have a theme night, or the GRX did it where, you know, each of their league seasons has a theme. You know, like where every list you made one season had to have a quad jumper in it, or every list has to have at least a Mando token in it, because Ryan just loves Mandalorian drop troops in X-Wing, that kind of thing, right? So anything that you can come up with that after you've got people that are past that first kind of, ooh, I don't know if I'm ready to go from the kitchen table to the game store table step, is really making sure that people realize that there's that balance between casual and competitive options there, and really just feeling out what the scene is about. There's plenty of scenes out there that are never going to be at that competitive level, and they're really happy with just those casual nights, and cool, and you know, and good for them. Enjoy your store champ kips, enjoy the Children of Mandalore, stuff like that. But those players are also the ones that are also welcome at places like, you know, the events I mentioned earlier in Canada, or your Gen Cons, your Adepticons. But a casual player that's only ever played Extended or Mario Kart or Droid Soccer, if they go to Adepticon having only ever been exposed to those formats, they're going to have a rough day. So you want to make sure that you as a club have that kind of options for everybody. So I'm really cool, and I'm really happy that I'm hearing all the same stuff from everybody here. We're all on the same page.
I made everything up. That was just the AI speaking.
It was the AI speaking. I figured, yeah, definitely. I thought it was.
We should totally do like
for a second.
we should definitely have a night or two, Marcel, where you just like sneak in a couple AI responses and see who can actually tell if that's your response or the AI chat response.
Yeah, no kidding.
What's that famous test? The psychology test where you have to figure out if you're talking to a person or a machine.
The Turing test?
The Turing test, that's it, yeah. Marcel's AI Turing test, Gold Squadron podcast there.
Well, anything else particular? Or we can round it out with one more thing from each of us. Is like if you wanted to, I'm trying to quick hit it. One thing you'd like the community to do in this summer, do more of on a community building level. What's the one thing you'd ask them to do? James.
Be more open-minded to list building. I know we just had Worlds. We just had all these, really big meta lists and Worlds. We also had a lot of not meta lists, or were previously not meta lists, do very, very well. And they didn't get there by, no offense to netlisters, Will, but but they got there by being innovative and
Cool.
I'm gonna defend my position. Only Hollow at Worlds. This net lister right here.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. That's true. But like Will does have, he does have a lot of practice and a lot of testing with that particular his particular flavor. So find out your own flavor this summer, and see what you like to fly. See what's fun for you to fly, and have fun. Don't try to win every game. Or don't try to stomp every game, but have fun and enjoy it.
Are we going We're going counterclockwise this time. I'll go next. For top thing, I want to see communities do in the 23-24 season is get behind one person in your store group. Every single local game store out there, whether you're 3 players on a Tuesday or 30 players on a Tuesday, I want to see every store out there get behind their gladiator to send to Schaumburg in March 2024. Everybody deserves to wear that jersey for their store, their local crew, their local kit, their local squad. And I think we're going to see way more squads show up in March of next year than we have in years past.
Okay. I was completely not paying attention. What are we supposed to say for our final?
What's one thing you'd like to see the community do going forward this summer? Community growth, building, or just better yourself, sportsman-like wise, whatever you feel like you'd wish
Community as a
would do
whole?
more of. Yeah, just pick one thing that you want the community to do more of, that you value.
Got it. Show up is what I would like the community to do more. Is isn't that like a GI Joe thing? Like showing up is half the battle or something like that. Like
The real American hero.
yeah, it was something like knowing is half the battle. Yeah. Well, the other half of the battle is showing up. So there you go. It's a part that GI Joe didn't say. Like knowing is half the battle. Showing up is the other half. But yeah, I think just showing up and I'm saying that mostly for myself because I'm not showing up. I want the community to do well. I'm really good friends with the people that are making the attempt to get people to show up locally. I respect them a lot. I like them a lot, and they're really good friends. And I'm not being a contributor to it. So this is kind of inward, but also outward, because I'm not the only one out there that is that has that is lucky enough to be around, that they have places to go, are just finding reasons not to go. So think of that reason why you shouldn't go, put it aside, go anyway.
All right, I got one. So this is a new objective for you. And essentially, you cannot win a game if your opponent isn't having fun. You did not win that game. Your X-Wing ships may have, but I don't think that you did. The reason people are coming out and playing X-Wing is they're trying to build those relationships. They're trying to meet new people. They're trying to have fun. Of course, we've been talking about, competitive versus casual, but I would say if you've never met someone before, that is the perfect time to ensure that you make a good impression on them, especially if they're like, I've never been in this game store before. You have to take that upon yourself and have that be like, you must be now that spokesperson for this store. They will take every opinion about that store from you, so you have to go above and beyond. You don't have to throw the game, I'm not saying that, but talk about their list, ask them questions, be interested in why they're flying X-Wing, and make that bond. There's so many people. I've played an X-Wing once, but I knew from one, hour and a half game that I'm best friends with this person. And every time I see him, we're gonna hang out. I mean, most of you people are those people. So that would be my challenge for everybody. What I want to see out of them is ensure that not just you're having fun, because of course you should be having fun. You're playing the game too. But really go above and beyond for your opponents to make sure that they're having fun as well.
Leave your chaff clouds at home.
Yeah, maybe.
Please. I'll say, even though I brought up this question, I had to think about it, which is probably a good thing. So I think everyone should try and be. This is going to sound like too fancy of a title for everyone to be, but it's not hard. Be the ambassador to the game that brought you in, right? Just be the same type of person that made you love the game initially, or be interested in the game initially. Be that same type of person to the next person that you see. And not just, it's not the easy stuff where it's like, oh, I just got to tell people when a game night is of a server that already exists of X-Wing. Like if you're true level ambassador stuff, you're growing it, right? You need to, when someone comes up and they're just kind of, those people, right? They walk up to the game store, they're just kind of eyeballing your game. They don't say anything. They're just kind of looking, maybe seeing if you'll talk to them. They're just checking it out. And I've done this. I know, because I know I've seen other people do it too. You also stay quiet, or you stay too focused on your game, and it kind of shuts them out. It shuts out a potential other person that could be in that game night in 2 weeks, right? So instead of keeping yourself quiet and focused on the game, it's a game night. Talk to the people watching around you. Get them engaged. Engage with them. And actually go simply offer that, hey, you want to step in? We're in the middle of the game, but hey, you can take my spot for a second. I'll show you how to do these things, and we can just play for a little bit. You can take one of my turns. Not a big deal, right? So just find easy ways to actually engage with the people you don't know because if you want to grow and get bigger store nights, you have to find new people. And if the person was right there, right? You've seen it. They're watching you, but you didn't engage with them. It was right there the whole time. Just talk with the people who are watching around you. It's a little bit passing that awkward moment because some people aren't comfortable with that, and that's understandable, right? Try and find ways to break that ice a little more, though, right? If there's anything I know the Canadians do well, Tim, they know how to break ice, right?
Well, we got it. Otherwise, we can't go fishing, and then everybody starves. Yeah.
Exactly, right? You got to get your fish through breaking ice.
I think I've been doing it wrong. I'm just saying because, I've been playing, and then they creep up, and I was like, "Get away from me, you creep!" And then, the 6-year-old starts
take
crying,
a picture. It lasts longer.
Yeah.
So,
it's so true. Anybody walks in and sees a store champ kit happening, and there's 10, 15 players playing, is 6, 8 tables going. People are like, "Oh, look at all these cool starships and stuff. People rolling dice. What's going on?" And they walk over and they look at you, and you just look at them like, "I'm in the planning phase. Don't even look at me."
Or I even had it where some people will actually say, "Hey, what game you playing?" "Oh, we're playing X-Wing." End.
End of
No more
conversation.
conversation. That's it. It can't end that way anymore, guys. Like it has to. You have to build on it.
I remember being in a store champ kit in Sarnia, Ontario, just over the border from you folks in Michigan. And I was there one time and somebody walked into a store champ kit and a guy I knew who was playing. Somebody walked in and was like, "Oh, what are you guys playing?" He's like, "I'm playing X-Wing here. I'm in the middle of the game. Here, you play the next turn for me. Go ahead." It was a super casual event. I'm not saying you do that like if there's a world invite and a store champ kit on the line, but I love what you were saying, Ryan, is pay it forward, be the ambassador of the game that brought you in. I love that. That was a great message.
I mean, could you imagine if like you walked up to, let's say, a game you never played, like say Shatterpoint comes out, and you're waiting a couple months, and someone's playing a game, you walk up, you're like, "Yeah, I was kind of interested. I saw it a while back. It looked really like a cool game, but I haven't tried it yet." And someone just turns to you and says, "You want to play the next turn for me?" Like, no one's going to expect that, one. And two, like, unless they're in a rush, they're in. Like, that's an immediate hook, right? You just want to play right now. Like, I don't need this turn. I'm just here. Like, I want you to play this game more than me.
What's one turn in the grand scheme
right?
of X-Wing or Shatterpoint games over a year, right?
He might do, and that person might do something really cool, and then that's it. They're hooked. Right? Already done.
Well, thank you guys very much for letting me come and rant about Canadian events. Again, I'm not going to go through all the details of them again, but if there's anybody who wants to have some more details about some of these bigger, larger than a store kit events that are happening in Canada in the next, I want to say 6 to 7 months before the snow falls, happy to help. Ryan, I'm sure you can help connect anybody who reaches out with us. And vice versa. You guys make sure to get your event map on the interwebs, and we'll try and get some of those in the map as well for our Canadian players, and we'll try and make our way down as soon as we can.
Hashtag fill the map.
Yeah, fill the map. Yeah, it should be potentially in this podcast description. If not, down in the description of the YouTube videos, we'll get that out there. I think they're already posted in our Discord. Check out the GSP Discord.
We'll make sure that link ends up in the...
We'll be promoting this. I love the idea, by the way. So hopefully, like I said, if we can all work together, make it a real useful tool for now and the next Store Championship season, really can bring those communities together.
We can make sure that all those links get posted for sure.
Yep,
Who invited you? Go back to the basement.
That's
God?
Run.
Speaking of somebody who just walks into the store champ kit and walks up to the game in progress.
Yeah. We got all those links though, so should be great to see the progress of it in the future.
All right, fantastic. So it sounds like you guys are done. Yeah, we're good.
Dion, who did you play with when you first started playing?
Who did I play with? I played with my friend Chris Kuzmanoff, who played the TIE Phantom against me, but we were not aware of the rules change. So I learned how to play X-Wing versus a busted TIE Phantom. It was great.
Sounds about right. We were talking about our entry into the larger X-Wing community, and I think that that's what you had said. You had played against him, weren't having a good time, and you went off to find other potential victims to play against.
Yeah, my first game was actually against his wife, but I didn't realize that K-turns were a thing, so we just ended up in this weird state where we were consistently doing a one hard but can never shoot each other, and we're going like, what? I don't understand what's happening, but I was interested.
No ship has a boost.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening. I know it wasn't around, but I'm sure it was great. I'll make sure to listen to it later. Again, if you are missing a stream prize, I made a post on Discord. Check it out. Documents posted, nice and clean. And if you have any questions, please just let me know. Thanks again for listening. Be smart and be safe. Gold Squadron